Doug Cuny, and this is my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make kombucha. Kombucha is a slightly effervescent fermented drink made from sweet tea. First thing you're going to need to do is make the tea. I make about a gallon at a time. So you're going to need a container that's large enough to hold over a gallon of water. I use this. It's just an old corn pot. It's beat up and ugly, but it does the jobs. So it's kind of like me in that respect. First thing we'll do is use filtered water to make our tea. Once we have a gallon of water, we'll add some white sugar. In this case, the sugar will be eaten up by the culture and transferred into an acid. So I usually ferment my kombucha a little longer than most people because I don't really like sugar in my beverages. I like a more tart flavor, so I usually leave it to brew longer than most people suggest. Usually about 3 weeks in my case. So what we're going to do, we're going to cover this, we're going to set it on the oven on high and bring it to a boil. So once you've got your sugar water on to boil, in this case I'm going to take 6 packets of tea. I would suggest something that's not highly flavored. And through experimentation I've come to 6 as the amount that I use in a gallon. And I just remove the tags. I happen to pull the string off this one. I'll just toss that in and fish it out later. And I tie the strings together just so that they're a little easier to retrieve. Kombucha is one of those cultures like kefir that actually generates a mass or an environment for itself to live in, separate from the beverage itself. In the case of kombucha, it forms a mass that can take on several different appearances, although usually it's kind of a cream-colored, rubbery sort of layer that forms on the top of the kombucha. It's known by quite a few different names. I've heard it called a mushroom, a mother culture. Often it's called a SCOBY, which is stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. Now our sugar water has come to a boil and the sugar is completely dissolved. So I'm going to take the lid off. We'll toss our tea in. Now if you happen to want to use loose tea, you can go ahead and use loose tea and strain it out, or you can, if I make yerba mate, I will put it in a couple tablespoons in a coffee filter and then tie the top of the string. That works the same way as a tea bag. So now we've got our tea in. I'm going to set the water off and I'm going to let this steep. And it's probably going to take the best part of the day, or at least the afternoon, to cool down. When you can touch this in its room temperature, then you're ready to move on to the next step. Now the sweet tea that we made earlier is cooled to room temperature and it's ready to use. And in this case, instead of starting at the beginning, I have a batch of kombucha that's ready to dispense and to bottle. So I'm going to do that, and then I will make the fresh batch. And I think you'll be able to put it all together. I'm going to go at it kind of backwards, but you'll get the main gist of it. You want to let your kombucha be exposed to air so that it can breathe. It's kind of like yogurt in that fashion. And so what I do is I put it in these gallon containers, and I put a piece of butter cloth or muslin over the top that I use for straining butter when I make it and all kinds of different things. And I simply put a little sticker on it with a little code that tells me what kind of tea I'm using and the date that is most likely for it to come out after, you know, certain length of time that I've experimented with. So I take that off. The cloth is just simply tied on with a piece of cotton kitchen twine, which works real well. So we'll, excuse me, we'll take the cloth off, and we have what's called a SCOBY. The top of it's gotten sort of dry, but it's kind of a butt ugly thing. And here's the top one. You can see there's another one underneath. This is the old one that I put in last time. I'll probably throw this one out and put this one back in. This is because this is the youngest of the two. Now you're going to want to make your kombucha and store it in glass or ceramic. It seems to do well in both of those. And also with your SCOBY, you're going to want to keep some of the kombucha because it likes to be left in its comfortable acidic environment. Now this ladle that I have holds exactly a cup. Now when I pour that, it's got quite a fizz to it. Grab a small spoon. Yeah, that's perfect. It's got a hint of sweetness to it, but it's got a tart flavor. It's almost like the sweet and sour that you taste in lemonade. So anyway, I've got my ladle. I'm going to take my SCOBY and set it off to one side, and we'll bottle this up. The most obvious way is really the easiest. You get a funnel, you get a ladle, and you put it in the funnel. I've noticed that if I use these 750 milliliter bottles with the swing tops, these are great because you can use them over and over again and they seal up very well. I can get a gallon in about 4 of these, and the way that I do them is I put a cup in one, I go to the next one, I put a cup in, and that way I get an even consistency throughout all of them. Now as soon as I dip this out, I can see it starting to foam. It's got a nice effervescence to it, and you can see as it goes into the bottom of the bottle it foams. So we move on to the next one. I've filled my bottles up, and I have filled them real close to the top because I'm going to set these aside for a few more days. I'm going to say 2 or 3, and let them sit at room temperature with the bottles capped. I think what that does is help to actually trap some of the carbonation, so the final product of the kombucha tends to be a little fizzier than it would if you just put it directly in the refrigerator. Alright, we've tidied up and we're getting ready to make a new batch of kombucha. So we're going to want to put the SCOBY back in. Like I said, the one in the top tends to be the youngest. It's the one that formed in the last batch. That will tend to be the strongest. I'm just going to put that in the bottom. Now this one is a little older, and I've noticed that keeping 2 doesn't necessarily accomplish much more. It's kind of like when people try to keep all their kefir grains the ones that you're keeping tend to starve to death, and then they don't know why all their kefir grains go bad on them. So I'm not inclined to keep these, although this older one probably has a couple more batches in it. But if I was giving it away to a friend, I would give them this one. Or if all you have is one, I found that you can actually cut these in half with a sharp, clean knife, or cut out a piece, fair size, and give it to them. The trick is to put it in about a cup of fully fermented kombucha, and then put it in a plastic jar or a glass jar and give it to them and show them how to make their own kombucha, and then they can start it from there. It's kind of a combination of the SCOBY and the fully ripe kombucha that starts your next batch. So this one I'm going to set aside. That's going out. Now, if you're ordering, if you have to order from a shop online, if you don't have access to a SCOBY locally, once again, I would suggest that you check with culturesforhealth.com. I know that they do in fact sell, I think that it's the SCOBYs or the culture dehydrated. You follow the instructions and then you start your own culture. You rehydrate it and start your own culture. I've never done that, so I don't know exactly how that works. So if you go that route, follow the instructions. So it's just this simple. We're going to take that cup of kombucha that was fully fermented. We're going to pour it in there with the SCOBY. Then I'm going to get our tea, which steeped most of the day, and I'm going to pour it right in on top of the SCOBY. Very gently. And I'm going to fill it almost all the way up to the top. We need it to be able to breathe, so I'm going to put the cloth back over the top of it. Sometimes, if it's very full, the SCOBY will get thick, and especially when it's warm, and touch the top of the cloth, and the cloth will start wicking kombucha, and of course it leaves a stain, which you just get another cloth and you throw that one in the wash. So I'm going to take the string, instead of tying a knot, I'm just going to loop it 3 times and it'll hold itself in place. And tighten it up. I'll find myself another tag, put the target date on it. I'll set it on top of my refrigerator where it seems to do well. Maybe fold that up to get it out of the way. And that's it. That's all you need to know about making kombucha at this level. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, feel free to leave comments or questions for me. I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to my channel and share these videos with your friends. Until next time, I'm Doug Cuny. Take care.